Hello, I'm with She Van Fleet, everybody. Welcome to Walk-Ins Welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by and being here. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. You've written, you're here to talk about your newest book, Made in America, but you have written a book before this that was more of a memoir. So I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about that first so that my audience can get a sense of who you are. And you are somebody that I've been following and reading, and I think I probably became exposed to you during your big viral moment in Loudoun County, which we will get to as well. And I think your perspective is so important right now in this moment. So please just tell me about your memoir, where you're from, and what inspired you to write your first book.
Yes, and I was born into the so-called New China, the communist China, and that's what we're told, that we're just the luckiest kids in the world to live in the communist China. Of course, I believed it because I have nothing to compare with. I have no idea what it was like being outside China. So I bought a lie, and when I was in my first grade, and the Cultural Revolution started. That was 1966. And the revolution lasted for 10 years until Mao's death. And that's how I spent my youth. By the time I graduated from high school, because of the Cultural Revolution, everything was absolutely in ruins. And there's no jobs. There's so many young people in the city, what you do? So Mao sent all of us to the countryside and told us, there, we're going to continue our education that's called re-education by the peasants. So the other way I think it's to describe it is just basically a gulag. Mm-hmm. It's not like a countryside when people think about this beautiful countryside in the US. So I worked in the fields with the peasants for 3 years before I could go to college. By then, the successor of Mao want to normalize everything, and by opening universities and by opening China up, and so then I was able to go to college. Fast forward, in 1986, I was able to get my student visa and come here to study. And I really truly believed that I left communism behind me, and everything will be just fine. I will live happily ever after. And that was something I truly believed. I paid no attention to politics, believing that whatever happened, Democrats or Republican, they're all trying to figure out the best way to help everyone in America. And I just had no idea until I think in the early 1990s, I started to notice little things here and there, like a political correctness, mm-hmm. like identity politics. But still, I did not give it much thought until much later.
So even in when you were in college, it wasn't quite in the universities yet, in the way that it is now.
No, not nearly, but it started. Actually, the first thing I noticed was, I think it's in 1991, but I did not connect it to cultural Marxism. And we were told to use certain terms, nice terms, to describe people with disability. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really, really nice that Americans are just so sensitive to their fellow citizens. And I said, of course I'll do that. Don't say blind, say people with vision. I can't even remember because they keep changing.
Right.
And but eventually I noticed that was control. That was actually speech control and control of your mind. And just like what I experienced in the Cultural Revolution. But it's gradual because my alarm was done. I did not think that in America, we could have people who push in this kind of a toxic ideology that completely ruined China and ruined my life. 26 years. It's not like I came here as like a few years old and have no memory. I lived through it.
Right.
Yes, it's gradual, and I just because I falsely believed that freedom is a given, and I just always be there.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been writing recently, trying to trace this timeline a bit and asking people when they first became aware of the gender stuff. What year did they become aware of pronouns? When did that become something that they were hyper focused on, or where they realized that it was kind of everywhere, or where it was something that was brought into their HR? And it seems like it was the 20 teens, the early.
Okay. Actually, I think it's in the exactly early 2010s. And maybe 2012, 13-ish. And guess where I learned it? I learned from my son. He was in high school. And he came home and gave me a lecture about transgender.
Oh, right. Okay.
And gave me some YouTube links. And I was like, oh, really? There's such a thing. And where did he learn? That's the question.
Right.
Of course, I did not ask. But I was just like, oh, there's such a thing. And I believe it's probably 2010, 2012.
Yeah. So that's when it seems like most people who were around education became aware of it. I was not in education. I was an adult. And so I became aware of it when I was working with younger people, and they started it was there was one person in our group, and everybody really had to walk on eggshells around this person, and it changed the entire dynamic of it was kind of a group working environment. And because it used to be very free and open, and then it became very much that one person who had this, she had just graduated from college, had very deeply identified with the queer stuff and identity politics, and we couldn't say anything. I mean, somebody would mention that they wanted to go to Hawaii, and she would be like, "Why do you want to go to Hawaii? That's colonized." And I had never, I had not been exposed to any of this, and so it was all very. I'd started seeing some of it online, but to hear it in the real world, I hadn't seen it in the wild. And so
I can share my experience with you, and also at the same time when I heard that from my son, which means they were talking about it in high school, and also my workplace. I remember one day, just absolutely from nowhere, and I just shared with my Black coworker. We were friends, really good friends. That I just came back from a vacation from the South. I said, "What did you do there?" I said, "Yeah, we did this and this, and visited some plantation." That I have no idea triggered her so much. She just said, "Who support those who make that plantation possible?" Just yelled at me. I was like, oh my God. And that to me is also one of the turning point. I realized that I have to be really careful to say anything. And that's exactly what happened during the Cultural Revolution. Growing up, my family and everybody's parents would tell their children, don't say anything.
Right.
Think once, twice, or three times, or just don't say anything. And because it is the speech that brought so many people into trouble, and some of them just imprisonment and even execution.